I don't know if anyone on YouTube ever talked about this before this video is uploaded, but this is something else about Power Rangers worth discussing. The many diverse morphing sequences of the respective teams of Power Rangers can really excite viewers. In any episode of Power Rangers, when one ranger, several rangers, or the whole team needs additional power to fight back, they say something and do something, and the next thing you know, they're in their suits ready for action. Back when I watched the earliest seasons, the Rangers morphing was my favorite part. Just the very moment when they ever do that has me the most excited, if I'm being honest. I can at least say that I've also seen the morphing sequences in subsequent shows, and that I like a lot of them. However, it's not all the time that it works, however it was seen, and I can't be alone on that. So the morphing sequences, as well as how they are in the episodes and how they should work, is another thing to take into account into making the franchise one of the best. I'm not describing the morphing sequences of each of the teams in this video. What I can say here is that the morphing sequences as seen in the episodes, and whether they work or not, as well as how much they work, if they work, should be looked at. During a morphing sequence, after a phrase is said which means that it's morphing time, there are visual effects while one ranger, several rangers, or the whole team says something and does something before being enclosed in their respective helmets and suits in their next shots. In many seasons, those of the Zordon era most particularly, there was a certain order of the individual rangers morphing during the whole team morphing. And regardless of not all five morphing all the time, the order of the people morphing was in the same order. If I'm being honest, I find this more sensible than if they were morphing at random. When the alien rangers are in the fray, as they were first seen morphing in a certain order, group morphs were shown in later episodes, which is good actually. Then, if I thought it right, Zeo is the first installment to feature group morphing with split screen. And then Turbo did it even before the new recruits are brought in. Now, the individual morphing sequence of the Space Rangers was in such a short time that there was no need for group morphing. But Lost Galaxy and other following installments that featured it had split screen of Power Rangers morphing, although individual morphing was shown nevertheless. I think group morphing is good only in the sense that it cuts down an episode's running time as when necessary, but that's not to say it's better than individual morphing. I think that footage of the morphing sequence of each ranger is still essential so that the different morphing processes from different morphers can be best acknowledged. I suppose that in Dino Charge and Ninja Steel, the individual morphing felt so long, the morphing as a group was seen most of the time. And yet, I feel the morphing process for those teams, let alone for each ranger, don't need to be that long, especially for the movements. What I also can't find necessary is the instances when rangers morph on the spot, and such that the reused footage of the morphing is not used. I don't mean that they don't work at all. There actually are times when they're only right. All I'm saying is they don't always work. Sometimes I watch it happen and I don't think it's right for that moment. Not to mention that among those times, I also don't think it should happen the way it did. The morphing sequences in Power Rangers has got to be an element that gets its audience excited. But even so, there are times when someone, and not just me, would suddenly question if the morphing sequence scene is right for the episode it's in. So, I think it would work best in an installment of Power Rangers when the individual morphing sequences are shown first, and then group morphs in subsequent episodes. And that when a single Ranger morphs on the spot, it works for that very moment. And yes, how I think it should work best, I'm applying this in my fandom as well. Now it's over to you. What do you think of the Power Rangers morphing? Which morphing sequence is your favorite? Which ones are you not okay with? And how do you think they should go? Type down your comments, and thanks for watching.